Hello everyone, welcome back to Aurelia City in City Skylines. So, we did big changes last time. I finally cut into the terrain around the upper lake and we shaped the first part of the new waterfront. We built the dome on the edge, which nicely continued the old project with the artificial lily pads and overall the rest of that part of the city. Today we will move to the roundabout that is on the side of the big park, where we will do a proper multi-level plaza with a transfer station, lots of details, different shapes, and so on. And then we are also going to focus on other places too. Let's go. Okay, so I started doing this place somewhat in the last episode already. I, for example, extended that tram line from this roundabout into that waterfront area and eventually to the dome because I really wanted to already finish that terminus station there. And, in the last episode, of course, the one that we have seen, the loop on the side of the main road. But I kind of left this roundabout just unfinished. I didn't really do anything much to it because I didn't really have the idea. But now I definitely do have the ideas. And we are just going to turn it into a really nice looking place in this entire, district, like a broader district of the city. So what exactly am I doing here and how is this place going to look? Now, I am creating some kind of a different circle above the roundabout level. The roundabout itself is it doesn't really need to be a roundabout. It is going to be like a one-way road, but it's not really going to see like crazy amounts of traffic. It's just a circle that's kind of looking good there. But if it was just a standard intersection, it would be also perfectly fine. But I really like how I built it some time ago under that main street right on the side of this park, and there was a need for that because we had the tram kind of just arriving at this level anyway. So it just felt fitting to build it like that. And back in the day, I already prepared a couple of buildings under that main avenue, commercial buildings most probably, so that it's just going to look interesting below it. So we are basically going to extend that a lot. I'm going to be copy pasting some of the styles that I did maybe like 2 years ago when I was building this first. I'm not really sure how old this project is, but probably really, really old. But we're just going to make it look so much better because we also have much more interesting tools at our disposal these days. We have the network multi-tool, especially the roundabout builder was really, really key at the start there. You could have seen me just aim at that circle of the first roundabout, the one below, and then just kind of extend the shape higher so that it's going to have exactly the same centers, for the circles. Now, I'm going to be using these office buildings, but I'm going to be thinking about them as really commercial buildings, just some kind of shops on this lower level. We are going to create some kind of open space in front of it like this, and then we are just going to continue the places or the blocks of buildings that we already had here. So for example, under this part of this bridge, I had these probably vanilla buildings. I'm not really sure what exactly they are. I guess they are vanilla, and I'm just going to repaint them with the repaint mod so that they are going to be sharing the same color, which is going to look better. And then I'm going to create this kind of like a planter on the roof so that they are going to be just nicely tucked under the second level or second layer that we are preparing up here. Now, obviously the node controller is also kind of important in here because I'm using the node controller to make these concrete walls slightly wider, which is going to just, make them stand out a bit more on the edges there, which is just going to help the place. Also, another tool that I did not have back in the day is the intersection marking tool, or for example, those bridge bare roads made by KJ that I used for this bridge, and all these other wonderful tools that are just amazing these days, and I'm kind of taking them for granted. But revisiting these old projects, it definitely makes me just appreciate the tools that we have today, because not only it's easier, obviously, with them, but it's just allowing me to do completely different stuff that I could not back in the day. So that's nice. That's really, really interesting. So I'm already creating these artificial surfaces in here, just covering some of these places with grass. And look at that. You can already see how this place is just shaping up. It's really nice. I really wanted to have this place non-symmetrical. So There are a couple of elements that might be symmetrical, but not really. I suppose that the roundabout on the bottom kind of is, but eventually it's not going to be because it's going to have different roads radiating from it. The tram is not going straight through it, and all these other detailing elements are not going to be really symmetrically positioned around it, which is kind of nice. I really do think that that made this place definitely very unique after it's going to be done. After it's going to be done, you're going to see that too. Now, I think I was doing this on the live stream, and people suggested that I do some kind of a structure that's going to maybe go slightly into the roundabout. So I finally decided to just use that one big, I think it's an office building. It might be a residential building. I'm not really sure. I already used it in the city, by the way, but I also used it as a procedural object, and I completely just sunk it into the terrain and only used a couple of the top floors. And I'm actually going to leave it up to you to write it in the comments. Where did I use this tall building before? Now in here, I decided to use it fully as one instance, and then I just copy pasted it and again sunk it into the ground so that it's going to create this like a sloped surface. It's kind of going to look like it, and it's just going to overlap over that pedestrian, the white road, into the center of the roundabout, kind of. So that's going to just, or not into the roundabout, but just the lower level, right? But it's just going to, again, create something interesting, which is definitely highly asymmetrical, and it's something not exactly all that obvious, because these kinds of buildings would usually be built or in different kinds of projects that I did in the city, I would probably build them on the side of that pedestrian road, and I would just leave that road completely open. But this is just something interesting. The road nicely cuts through the building, which is obviously enabled by converting it into procedural objects, so that I can do that little hole, the opening in the building, which is probably also going to serve as some sort of an entrance into the structures, because I am converting them into procedural objects, but I'm going to be putting those kinds of cube services inside, mostly residential and even commercial and offices here and there. So this place is actually going to be reasonably alive, with just people walking on the streets and just, living and working and shopping in this place and using public transport. Now, the rest of the second level, I decided to do something really crazy, and I really liked how one of my viewers on the stream when I was doing it called this a plastic surgery on this building, because it kind of is, I suppose, that, because this building, I think this was the King Leno's, I'm not really sure how the building is called, but it's a really nice looking corner building. It's very uniquely shaped, and it's also slightly round. It has like a quarter circle on the inside of the building, which is probably supposed to be the entrance, some kind of a bay. Maybe it's supposed to be placed on some kind of intersection. I'm not really sure how it looks in real life, but it doesn't matter. But I decided to convert it into PO and just scale it so that the curvature of the building on that one wall is going to match the curvature of that second level. Now that obviously made the building ridiculously oversized, so I not only just made it lower, just cut away a couple of floors, even though this building is made, with the vertices and everything, so that I just squashed the building basically, but I also had to do like a really plastic surgery on the edges where I really needed to make it smaller. That unfortunately mangled a couple of the textures and also some edges here and there. So that's actually the reason why I'm putting that decorative network on that inner wall of these buildings, actually even connecting it to both of those instances. And since I already had that decorative network as the edge, I just decided to continue it over that main avenue and create some kind of a decorative arch, which is looking okay in that particular situation. But it is actually a network that's placed there not really automatically or something, but it's just like there out of necessity, because I just used it to cover some weirdness that was inevitably going to happen with the changes that I had to do with the procedural objects on these buildings. Now, what I'm creating over here is some kind of an entrance to loading base of this building. So this road that I changed there with the node controller, that's going to serve as the resupply road for all the cars that are going to go into this area to resupply the commercial, the block buildings that I'm going to later place inside of these structures so that they are going to actually serve a purpose. And again, we now have a new tool, obviously the building spawn points. So I can actually do this. I can place buildings so that they are going to be on that pedestrian path, which is going to have the entrance for people, but they are going to be resupplied with the trucks from behind, from just some kind of loading base that are going to be kind of disconnected from the pedestrian area, so that the pedestrian area can actually be completely car and truck free, which is nice. That's obviously something that the building spawn point mod is all about. That's what enables these kinds of car-free zones. Now, the rough shape of that plaza area is almost done, but we are now going to turn our attention to doing the public transport around this place. So, at first, I was doing some kind of changes to that tram road. It is going on that, first level, which is where the roundabout is, but eventually it needs to climb. I think you've seen that I did some changes with the network multi-tool to the slope, so I had it nicely smooth, and it follows some kind of 4.5% grade or something like that, all the way to the level of the waterfront, and then it's just going to continue flat all the way to the dome. So, 4.5 is perfectly acceptable for these kinds of trams, so I decided to just leave it like that, leave it straight, not do any kind of, spirals or serpentines or something like that for the tram. It would obviously just, make it go much longer, so this is just more convenient. It's even going to look better, going to allow me to put some interesting buildings around it, and so on. Now, it is going to transfer, or there is going to be a transfer station for the trams and the trains. So the tram is obviously going to be on the bottom of this entire area. It's going to go into this kind of a trench. I really wanted to have it partially visible, at least partially. The plan was to have it completely visible, but then I just used these, the circle buildings up there, and I decided to just, partially leave it covering the opening in here, but the rest of it is just going to be covered with this glass surface, which is looking really great over here, and the edges are just going to be neatly fixed by those planters, which are later going to receive some nice flowers and all kinds of decorations all around. And then I'm just going to put some retaining walls inside the trench and do some kind of more detailing around it on the entrances, for example, from the roundabout. So as you can see, the tram road, it already, or just the tracks, they are already rising right from the roundabout road, the ring road, right? So there is a bit of an elevation difference on the side of this gravel plaza down here, which I'm nicely going to cover with this surface network for the gravel, and the edges are going to be made using these stair networks, which are going to just form not only, access points, which are actually going to be access points functional. I am going to make it functional, but it's also a nice decorative element in that entire place. Now I'm going to continue doing these covers for the opening for that lower station for the trams, and just going to do the edges with the planters. That's just going to cover all these inconsistencies with the detailing and all these different holes in the terrain where some buildings used to be, or just the networks that are pulling the terrain down, or things like that. That's like a standard approach, really. Now, you could have noticed that back before, when I started this, I had like a monorail station over here. You might be wondering what that was. That was basically just a monorail station building converted into procedural objects and slightly stretched so that it would fit into, it would basically be a train station, which would just accommodate the length of the trains that we are using in Aurelia. But I decided against it because I really wanted to have the train station actually a bit more open. So I decided to only do the bare station track in there and just put some kind of platforms around it. It was kind of clear, later that I do need to provide at least some kind of roof over the platforms. So, don't worry, we are going to get there. But I really wanted to have this minimalistic train station there because the main focus should be on the plaza itself. Now, I also need to take care of some of these connections from that roundabout. So we had that one road that was going under that circular or quarter circle building into that loading bay area, and this other road, it definitely would make sense if it was just going straight from the roundabout, because the roundabout is kind of like radiating these different shapes, or these different lines is definitely radiating from it. The tram road, and at least one of these asphalt roads, it would be really nice looking as well if it just went straight from the circle and just continued all the way to this upper waterfront main avenue. Now, I also have this place in here that I really needed to fill with something, and that is, of course, this interchange area with all these different loops. Now, back in the day when I was doing this interchange, or actually it was a bit later when I did this interchange, I did one corner of it with some kind of like sunken industrial area or like a warehouse area. And I decided that I'm really going to follow that trend that, again, I set like maybe 2 years ago when I was doing this place. And I'm just going to continue doing these kinds of industrial areas. So I just placed a couple of random industrial buildings there. I just made the surfaces detailed with some kind of stains and dirt and these kinds of things, and put some kind of parked vehicles, and just made it look some kind of light industry, not like super heavy manufacturing, but some kind of warehouse area, or just some kind of light industry. And I think it's really going to provide a good contrast in the area. The area is just not going to be like a completely high density residential or office place, or something like that. So there's just going to be a slight variation. So that's nice. Now, I also downloaded these Berlin buildings. They obviously have like two parts, but I eventually decided to not use it on the side of the canal, just like you might see it in Berlin. But I only used a single building because it had a very nice cut corner. Again, in real life, it's supposed to be placed on the side of the river, of the canal, and it's following its shape. But in here, I really wanted to have it on the side of those tram tracks, because it also follows the shape of those quite nicely. And it's just a huge footprint building, which is going to just allow me to just click once, place that building there, and basically have the entire block finished. So that's a big thumbs up from me for these kinds of big buildings. I always like to use them, because I'm just done with those places very, very quickly. And these kinds of buildings on the waterfront, I don't really want to bother with those places too much, because I really want to mostly focus on this plaza. And this is exactly what I was talking about. I am putting that functional cube, or I never remember if it's cube or block. I think these are cubes. Yeah, I think these are cubes. It was a functional commercial cube or block? Cube, I think. Yeah, and I turned it so that it's going to have with the building spawn points mod, it's going to have that loading area for the resupply area for the back of that big building. Okay. Now, next thing that is really necessary for making this place alive and functional, that's obviously pedestrian connections. So I'm not showing nearly all of them in the time lapse. I'm just showing you a couple of hints there that I did place them throughout the area. And yeah, this is actually 100th episode of Aurelia. So look at that. This is actually going to be the 100th Plaza, or something like that. I'm not really sure how I'm going to name the video right now. But anyway, yeah, some kind of a flower marking to celebrate the 100th episode in Aurelia. So, some kind of a detail to put there. Now, like I said before, we are going to do some kind of a roof over the platforms for the train. I really wanted to keep it minimal, so I just decided to use these kinds of roofs, turn them into PO, make them slightly wider and flatter, so they're going to fit the platforms. By the way, the platforms themselves are made wider by the node controller, so that it's just going to look better. And this particular station is actually going to be very busy with all kinds of people, just mostly exchanging from the tram, kind of going from the dome actually as well, but also just going into all these buildings around, because they are going to be in this episode and in following episodes, there are going to be like a lot of just office buildings all around, so people can easily just travel here from the downtown or other parts of the city by train. And this place is just going to be nice and lively with all the traffic from the public transport. So that's nice. Now, doing these kinds of small details, of course, finishing this trench for the trams and doing all kinds of nicely colorful trees and everything like that. And that's almost it. That's going to be it for today's episode. Or is it actually? What do we have there in the corner? Yep, that's the island city. And if you remember right, I never finished the island city. So we are actually going to take a look at it today and going to completely complete it. All right? So first things first, the island city is old. It's super old. And by the way, when I was doing the island city, I did not have the terraforming network. That's right. That's how old it is. So I was using some kind of retaining walls that kind of acted like keys, and I was using them to pull the terrain down around these fingers of the island city. So first thing I did here when I revisited it, I just got rid of those walls and I replaced them with the terraforming networks. And I had to make sure that the terraforming networks are not going to be touched by the node controller, because you don't really want to do that when you are doing it for kind of sculpting the bottom of some kind of body of water, because the water is then going to go crazy at map loads. Now, the technique I'm going to use here is going to be very, very straightforward. I just copy-pasted the entire thing, the entire finger of the island city, and I'm just going to copy-paste it 3 times into these unfinished fingers. I know, it's probably a bit lazy approach, but we will have to do some customization anyway, because the finger that was finished, it had the bridge continuing into the university, so it had the trams just running straight through it, but all of these different fingers, they will have to have some kind of a tram loop, because the trams will have to turn around. I was thinking of maybe somehow building it so that the trams will just reverse. It's obviously something that cannot be in the game, but I was thinking of maybe somehow kind of faking it so that maybe the tram is just going to like turn around on some kind of invisible, very, very tiny loop or something like that. But I eventually decided against it, and I am going to build a proper loop in here. I made sure that it's going to be like reasonably big. So I think this one has a radius of 20 meters, which, is kind of borderline, but who knows? I'm running some kind of imaginary trams in here anyway, at least, in Aurelia, in terms of the style of the city, let's say. But yeah, I'm just going to use these tracks that I actually prepared back in the day for the tram depot, for the public transport depot. These are the closed tracks, but I just extracted only the rails from them and made them so that they are not going to pull terrain up towards them. So they are going to fit nicely, and obviously with the help of the node controller, the network multi-tool, and all the different other tools that we currently have, I managed to just make it fit into this area really, really well. I eventually just changed only a handful of these buildings around just to accommodate the loop, to make some space for it. But otherwise, not really that many changes appeared here. So that's really nice. That's something that I really was aiming for. Now, that's going to be absolutely all, and here we are with the transition before and after. Look at that. So we not only extended the upper lake quite a bit, but we also extended the residential areas, the offices, and the area around this interchange. In the next episode, we are going to continue working on the waterfront. We are actually going to also do the waterfront itself, because right now it's just a straight quay along that main avenue, but I don't really like that. It's kind of not really original, not really unique. So we are going to do something about it. We are going to spice it up with some more shapes. We are going to put more unique buildings all around this place. We are going to finish the canal that is leading from inside of the city, the very first canal, by the way. And we are also going to finish all the industrial areas, the warehouses around this interchange. So finally, all of this place is going to be completely complete, right? That's going to be nice. Now the plaza though, the plaza is looking good. I really like how that turned out to be eventually, because it has all these unique shapes. It's not just a circle and some kind of, different circles on different levels or whatever, but it actually does have different shapes, different buildings, different styles, different colors as well. That's, by the way, why I put there that blue tower, which I definitely made a lot smaller so that there would be some kind of natural transition, because, we have all those medium density, very similar height buildings on the side of that dome area, let's say, and they are going to just gradually become higher and higher as we are getting closer and closer to the downtown. So this plaza is basically the transition or the dividing area between those medium density places that we did last time and all the big spires that we are eventually going to start adding in the next episode and in the next episode after that as well. And look at those trams, how they are just going through the area. That's just looking really good. Now we are going to take a look at the island city. As you can see, it's looking really great, how all the trams are just using the loops there. Unfortunately, right now I didn't have still the cube depot, I think, so I wasn't really able to put another line on that shorter line because if you look at the island city, it has the 4 fingers, right, with the tall building, with the pairs of the tall buildings, and the main line of trams goes obviously on the bridge, on the university, and through the main square of the island city into one of those fingers, right? But the other 2 fingers, they also have tram tracks on them, right? So but they don't have the trams right now on it because there is no space for like a proper tram depot. I'm thinking that if this was real life, like obviously it's not and it would never be, but they would probably transport the trams on that very short line kind of manually somehow, just on a truck or something, just load them on the trucks, on the tracks, and leave it running in there. You can clearly see it over here that on all of those 3 new fingers we do have those loops, so that's just looking kind of okay. Anyway guys, that is going to be really all for today. Thank you for watching today's Aurelia episode. I really hope you liked it, you enjoyed it. If you did, and you can always do those kinds of things that really do help these videos, really do help this channel. And that is, of course, putting a thumbs up below the video, leaving some comments, sharing the video if you want, and subscribing to the channel if you are new here. And if you also want to support the channel, support me in what I'm doing, then you can become a channel member through the join button below or the link in the description. A huge thanks to all the supporters, all the channel members that we currently have. I really do appreciate it, guys. Anyway, that's going to be all. Thank you again for watching. Take care and goodbye.